Okay, got it.
Sveiki visi prisijungę, matau dar jungiasi keletas žmonių. Hello everyone, today our talk will be in English, so I'll continue in English, and I'm very glad to introduce today's guest from Hong Kong, Nikko, Ngajun, if I'm not mistaken, the Cantonese name. And Nikko is welcoming us today directly from Hong Kong. So in advance, apologies if the connection isn't perfect, but we'll try our best and we keep fingers crossed that everything works well. My name is Yeva. I'm the host for today from the Center of Chinese Language and Culture. And Nikko, no wonder that Nikko is with us today. He lived in Lithuania, in Vilnius for 3 years. And Nikko, tell us, where are you greeting us from right now? Because you are in Hong Kong, but you're not at home, right?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Actually, I'm being isolated in the hotel still. Like, we have the restriction about when Hong Kong citizens coming back from foreign countries, so 7 days mandatory isolation applies to everyone. So I guess it's already the third or maybe the fourth one of my isolation right now. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm still stuck in the hotel. I can do nothing except the presentation I'm going to do soon.
Well, thank you very much, Nikko, that you're using your isolation time in this meaningful way today with us. Just a quick reminder for everyone that this talk is going to be recorded. We will later share this video with our followers on social media and on YouTube, so you can also watch it again later afterwards. If you have any questions to Nikko during his presentation on Hong Kong's culture, society, and history, please feel free to leave your question in the chat box on Zoom, or you're also very welcome to just turn your microphone on and maybe your video on and ask Nikko directly. If you want, you can leave your question in Lithuanian. I'll try my best to translate it to Nikko later on. So, Nikko, I give you the floor, and please tell us everything about Hong Kong.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to do a short self-introduction a little bit, just to let all of you know maybe about my background or something a little bit. I'm from Hong Kong, and basically you can see my name, Kachin Nikko. Kachin will be my given name. Will be my family name, so it's pretty much translated from Cantonese, because in Hong Kong our mother tongue is called Cantonese, and then we use traditional Chinese and English, bilingual in Hong Kong. So I have been living in Vilnius for 3 years. Since in the very beginning, I was seeking my master program in Vilnius University. And then after I finished my program, and then I started working in a German company in Vilnius for almost 1.5 years. So currently I decided to move back to Hong Kong for some personal reason. So that's the reason why I'm being isolated in the hotel. So I'm so happy being invited by Yeva to do this presentation to all of you. And I hope, maybe some of you who know about Hong Kong a little bit before, or maybe you who haven't heard about Hong Kong will get some understanding about Hong Kong after this presentation. So from here, I would like to start my presentation from right now. So please move to the next slide. So about your image on Hong Kong, maybe some of you have already know about Hong Kong. It's quite a cosmopolitan city in Asia. And then maybe some images, from your side, you can see like, a lot of business buildings, very densely, and also very tiny apartments. And also, oh my God, it's a little bit lagging with the presentation from my side. What is that? Yeah, very, very crowded everywhere because our population is quite a lot, like basically in total, even more than the whole Baltic states population. So it's very crowded everywhere from the local people plus the tourists. The next one. Yeah, you can see the sidewalks are everywhere. So we have quite a serious light polluted problem in Hong Kong. And then maybe the most current one to you, you can see the protest from maybe 3 years ago. And it was quite, I don't know, like quite a big news internationally. So next slide, please. It seems a little bit delayed from my side. Okay, here I'm going to talk about Hong Kong briefly from the group from the wiki. So basically, you can see from the right hand side is the landscape of Hong Kong. So we basically divided into 3 parts. There's one part we call Hong Kong Island, another part called Kowloon. Basically, the full name is called Kowloon Peninsula. Another part will be new territories and some other, islands like the Lantau Islands. Actually, Lantau Islands is where the Hong Kong International Airport located. And my home is located in New Territory and from the eastern side. So it's actually quite a distance to go to airport. And I can explain a little bit about Kowloon this term. This Kowloon pretty much refers to night dragons. And you can see maybe some definite dragonized restaurants in Vilnius is pretty much, from there, night dragons. And basically night dragons, this term was from Song Dynasty when the emperor came to, this place, Hong Kong, and found there's, several mountains in total, like 8 mountains. It's more like, the reign of dragon. And then he started to name, this place 8 dragons. But somehow one of the servants mentioned about emperor, you're also one dragon, because dragon in ancient China represented to, the highest, and emperor is the only person who can use, some symbols with dragon. So it will be 8 plus 1, so it is totally 9 dragons. That's how come, Kowloon 9 dragons, the name came from. And we have around 7.5 million from the statistic back in time in 2020. But right now, since we have more and more immigrants, so the statistic probably will be getting closer to 8 million. And most of the immigrants in every year, they're mainly from the north side, our neighbor, mainland China. So you can see our landscape has only like, 1,100 kilometers squares. And we don't really have our president since we are a city under China. So we have our chef executive. And basically the whole official name to Hong Kong is not called Hong Kong, it's called HKSAR. So basically it's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. So we are a city under China nowadays. And but we are having our own management, our own economy, our own passport. So it's pretty much like, we have our own system to run the city, but not really like, something from China. So that's the differences from us. So next one. So I would like to raise a very important question, like what makes us us? Since I have mentioned, like, we are a city of China nowadays, but somehow we are a little bit different to, some other cities, to China. So it will be based on some history factors to influence, the results, what makes us us. Next one. So since we had a period of time being colonized by UK, so it's pretty much like based on that history to build, what Hong Kong is nowadays. And why we were being a colony of UK was pretty much from I don't know, the previous war, when there was a war between UK and China, and just it wasn't China, it was back in time Qing dynasty, and then Qing dynasty got loose and also have to do something, to do a favor to UK, and then they signed, one agreement called Lanqing, which means Nanjing. The whole thing is called 南京条约 in Mandarin. And after that agreement, and then basically UK just took over a part of Hong Kong, not the fully, Hong Kong, but a part of Hong Kong from Qing dynasty, and then start running this territory. Next one. And then you can see the history, from the map. Basically, it since the first Opium War, which where Qing dynasty lose the war, and also later on triggered the Treaty of Nanking, and later on after the second Opium War, and then it was another agreement to sign called Peking, agreement, also pretty similar as Nanking, that one, but somehow after that agreement, basically the UK start colonizing, Hong Kong for 100, not 100 years, but like 99 years until 1997. And then later on, UK signed another agreement with mainland China, like, they are going to return Hong Kong to mainland China. So it was a transition, we call the returning during 1997. So also something happened later on, and until nowadays, maybe some, I don't know, protests and revolution and all those things. So next one. So you can see there are two different flags. From the left-hand side, it is the Hong Kong flag we are using nowadays. And you can see basically it looks like a flower with 5 stars. The flower is our city flower. But about the whole name in English is very like, a special term. I don't know how to call it, but it is some sort of archy. With 5 stars pretty much means, it's under China. So that's why, 5 stars represents to China. And from the right-hand side, that's the flag during the British Hong Kong period we are using in Hong Kong, for the past 99 years colony period. Next. So there's also a term quite interesting I would like to introduce. It's called Nylonkong, which was appear in, the Time magazine in 2008. So how come this term, called Nylonkong, maybe some of you haven't heard about it? It's pretty much like Time magazines try to link those strong economy cosmopolitans in different continents, like New York stands for 9 in the States, and also represent London in Europe, and also Kong stands for Hong Kong in Asia. So back in time, those cities are pretty much doing, the finance, or maybe, very strong economy from the city, doing business. And of course, their business mode is also, like free port, and then maybe something about the tax pretty much influence different continents. So that's why, this term was created and released from the Time magazine. Next one. So we have our transformation. Like in the very beginning, Hong Kong was a very tiny fishing port, and then that was during the Qing dynasty, or even before. Hong Kong used to be a fishing port and really relied on fishing, or maybe catching some seafoods, for the living. And we have, 2 times the transformation. Like the second time, it was transforming to be some industrial stuff, like doing manufacturing for clothing, and also later on jumping to be a financial center nowadays. So we relies on tourism, relies on finance, relies on service, for our main income, or maybe the tax. So next one. Okay, here it comes to the food. So in Hong Kong, pretty much like we have, the food culture from different regions, since we were the colony of UK, and we have so many people from different regions, like, from India, from Europe, or even from the States. And it just from all those immigrants to create, the local food culture to be quite a mix with everything. But still, we have our main foundation, of the food culture called Cantonese. Since in Hong Kong, mainly we call ourselves, Cantonese, and our culture is Cantonese culture, our food, Cantonese food, and our language Cantonese as well. So next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. It's not working from my side. So Cantonese food is the mainstream of food culture in Hong Kong. So I would like to talk about the main thing, dim sum. Probably you have heard, or maybe you haven't heard about dim sum. Dim sum is pretty much like the representative, of Cantonese food. And normally people will refer to dim sum are normally, like the food putting on the bamboo steamers, but not actually correct, because there are thousands of dim sum, you can see, but mainly we are using that steamer to make most of the dim sum, but it's more than just, using the steamers. And actually dim sum plays very critical position in our daily life, and also from the food culture. And because basically we go to a restaurant during the weekend with our family, and also we are having morning tea, and then normally we will go to the restaurant for dim sum and also for some tea, just for breakfast. So the food is important, but also like, it creates some atmosphere, like, you're getting together with your family after a whole week of work, enjoying the food together. And dim sum in Cantonese also means like touch the heart, which means, all those food can literally warm your heart to make you feel like, you are fulfilled deeper inside your heart. That's how, the name to be created. Next one. Okay, the next slides I'm going to talk about 15, let's say 15 most welcome Cantonese food, or maybe food in Hong Kong you have to try. And then I will talk about it every single one, slowly. Next one by one. So from the first one is called ha gao in Cantonese. It's pretty much like, string dumplings. And I can tell, something a little bit like, actually my mom, she's working as a dim sum chef. So for me, basically I grew up by eating dim sum in my previous life. So I also need to, I also know how to judge whether the dim sum is really authentic, or maybe it's really in a good quality. Like Hagao will be the king of dim sum, that's how we describe. The main thing when you try Hagao, you have to see if the skin is very thin and also very visible. And if the fillings, are really full packed, inside the very thin skin, that's one of the factor you can judge, from the first sight. And also about the texture. I don't know, it's a little bit difficult to describe the texture, because basically the fillings, they're using some minced pork with some fresh string. So the whole thing is actually quite juicy, and you will not feel really flavored by, having some really heavy skin, a lot of flowers. So the second thing will be fish balls. As what I mentioned, Hong Kong used to be the fishing port, and we catch a lot of fish or a lot of seafood, from the seaside. And the fish balls pretty much using some, I don't know, we call lower class, fish, which you couldn't sell, or maybe it's going to be expired, to keep it. And then they will mash the meats and mix together, to be the mixture, and then they will just shake it into the balls and using hot water to cook it, or maybe just putting in curry. So you can see some curry fish ball, or maybe just fish ball in some broth like that. is quite a famous street food in Hong Kong. So the first thing is called churn fun in Cantonese, which stands for rice noodle rolls. So about this thing, there are quite a lot of different styles, but the simple style with only just the rice noodle rolls without everything. But there are so many various versions. Will be they are putting maybe shrimp, maybe pork, or maybe some vegetables, or maybe some beef in the middle of the noodle roll. If you have tried spring roll, is pretty similar, as this thing, but the texture is totally different. And one of the things to trigger, this churn fun to taste better, it will be the soy sauce, putting on the side. So yeah, that's the thing. That's also something we will order for, while having dim sum. And also the fourth thing I would call lo mai gai in Cantonese. You can see from the photo, which is pretty much like the sticky rice covering with lotus leaf. And the reason why it is called lo mai gai, pretty much lo mai stands for sticky rice, and gai is the Cantonese pronunciation chicken. And back in time when some restaurants, they couldn't sell, all the dim sums wherever, and then they will use all those leftover, mainly, the chicken, putting inside the sticky rice, and then they will do some marination, and then cover with the lotus leaf, and then they will steam it for the next day, and then that's how lo mai gai was created. And also the fifth one is Cantonese roasted goose. Maybe some of you have already heard or even tried Peking duck. So about this thing is actually quite similar, but the differences will be like Peking duck is using, to eat as a roll. You're having some paper skin and also put the roasted goose or roasted duck on the paper skin, and then you roll it as a roll. But in Hong Kong, the roasted goose will be pretty much like, you eat straight. And then it's very common to see the chef will help you to remove the skin, the crispy one, from the meat side. Because some people, they would like to try only the skin and also the crispy texture and also all those oily flavor at one time. So it's also another thing you have to try. Next slide. All right. Now it comes to the sixth one. It's called char siu, and pretty much like it's not really Chinese barbecue pot. We can say it's Cantonese barbecue pot. So basically, you mayonnaise the pot and also just bake it or maybe to barbecue it. And also later on, normally the chef will use some honey or maybe some special sauce covering on the skin to make it a bit shiny and also having some chemical effects to make the whole texture taste really crispy and also a little bit burning from the outside. And clay pot rice, one of my favorite in winter time. So pretty much people, they are going to the restaurant ordering clay pot rice, and also it's a really fulfilling food in winter time to make you feel warm after eating it. And normally it will be fresh mix after you order it, and then it will take around, I don't know, half hour to waste, waiting for the fresh clay pot rice to be made in the restaurant. And the eighth one will be typhoon shelter crab. I know probably from the translation seems a little bit weird, but Hong Kong, as I mentioned, is a fishing port, and also it's also a shelter hiring, typhoon. Because in summertime we have a lot of stones, and also typhoon will just coming, to, I don't know, go through Hong Kong, and then we are having our shelter, the harbor side, to put all those fishing boats or ship to just putting over there under the typhoon period. And all those fishermen, they created their own way to fry, the crab with this kind of style with some chili powder, deep fried garlic, and also some special spices. So it created this really localized dish called, in Cantonese, it's called 北风塘炒海, which as what you saw from the English translation, typhoon shelter crab. And also the 8th one and the 10th one, I would like to say it's not really originated from Hong Kong. Wonton noodle and also a brisket noodle. Wonton noodle is more like, the noodle soup from Guangzhou, but also a city in Canton. So it's also Cantonese food, but not really, authentic Hong Kong food. And also the beef brisket noodle is mainly from Chaoshan area. Also, they are near the seaside, so they are really famous with their noodle soup style. Also, the fish ball stuff and, those things are coming from that region, from the immigrants from Chaoshan area. Next one. So it comes to the final page here. Maybe some of you have already seen, the A waffle somewhere in Europe, or maybe called a bubble waffle. But this thing was originated, from Hong Kong. But actually, quite a lot of people, they don't know. Maybe they thought it is from Belgium as well, as Belgium is very famous for the waffle thing. But about the bubble, like this shape of waffle was, was from Hong Kong originated. And back in time when some sellers, they're selling eggs when the eggs is going to expire real soon, and then they're trying to mix all the eggs with some butter, with some powder, all those things to create this A waffles. And also the 12th one will be pineapple bun. The pineapple bun, because of the appearance, looks like pineapple, but there's no ingredients putting with pineapple related. And normally people, they will just have half cut in the middle and putting, some frozen butter in the middle when the pineapple bun is fresh made. So it will be, when the fresh made pineapple bun is still hot, will melt the butter in the middle. But for me personally, I don't like to be put, the butter. But normally we will recommend people who haven't tried, just try with butter. So the next one will be egg tart, and this egg tart is also quite a Cantonese style, and also because of the eggs we use from Hong Kong, like they created their own way of this egg tart, and we said this egg tart is pretty let's say Cantonese style because the skin is totally different to the, let's say, the Western one. The Western one is more like using the cookie paste, that kind of mixture, to cover the egg mixture in the middle. But this one is very crispy from outside, so the style is a little bit different. And also the bao pudding. Bao pudding actually got several versions. Some version will be having double layer of the milk skin on the top, because when you try to cool down, it will be one skin covering above, and then they're trying to make it 2 layers, or even some of them they are even adding some ginger flavor. So it's pretty much a famous dessert from Hong Kong. The last one, Hong Kong milk tea, and also Hong Kong milk tea as long as stuck milk tea. And because the reason why it is called the stuck, because we are using some bed to filter the tea. The bed originator is color in white, but after several times filtering the tea, and then it will turns to be the color like the stuck. And also that's how come the name called stuck milk tea as well. Next page. Okay, here comes to maybe something you don't know about Hong Kong, or maybe some fun facts. Next one. Well, actually, Hong Kong is the hometown of Bruce Lee, but maybe so many people they don't know, or maybe they have no idea. Actually, Bruce Lee is from Hong Kong. Next one. So you can basically find this statue next to the Victoria Harbor when you are traveling. And for people like me, we were born before 1997. So basically, we have two passports. Before 1997, we used, the UK passport. You can see from the right-hand side. So after Hong Kong just being returned to China, and then we are not using the Chinese passport, and then we have our own version Hong Kong passport. And you can see there, Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, but still People's Republic of China. So about this passport is also different to the Chinese passport, because the Chinese passport, they don't have visa-free staying in Schengen area for 90 days. But for Hong Kong passport, we do have it. And the thing is, we don't have to cancel the previous passport like the UK's passport. That's why we can have two passports. And even some special condition if I'm moving to another country and also getting my third passport, which I don't have to cancel my previous two. So for me, I will be having, 3 passports maximum, or maybe it could be more. Next one. Okay, this is our air flight company called Cathay Pacific. So I don't know, maybe some of you haven't heard of it, but in Asia it's quite famous about this one. It was once ranked, the best airline companies before, but nowadays since the quality is getting a bit lower, so it's not that well known at all. But it's pretty common to see, like, if you are taking a flight basically in Asia or even some other place to go to Hong Kong, you will always have the option, to take Cathay Pacific. So, and actually the logo looks quite familiar as the Turkish airline. So some people may think that, it is one branch under Turkish airline. And also here comes to, the living cost ranking about Hong Kong. So from this diagram, you can see the top 10 and also the bottom 10 cities, of the cost living level in the world. And then you can see we have a lot in Asia, and Hong Kong ranks the top one. I don't know, just it's quite unfortunate. Like, you are not being ranked top one from some other side, but about this side. That means the living cost is actually quite heavy in Hong Kong. And I would like to say, as a person living in Hong Kong, I don't really find it the living cost from food, from transportation is really that heavy. But somehow the housing part is definitely the main reason cause, the higher, living cost in Hong Kong from the ranking. So next one. As I mentioned, also another next one. As I mentioned about the housing market, and then you can see from those charts that Hong Kong is always being the top one from the least affordable housing market, or maybe the most expensive housing market in the world. Actually, we have been ranked for, 11 years straight, the world's least affordable housing market in the world, or even more, because we have quite a serious problem about the property demand in Hong Kong. Like, we have a very small landscape, but we keep having, immigrants, every year. And even if we are not calculating about the immigrants, about those housing is not enough to cover, like, 7.5 million, people living here in a very small landscape. So we are always looking for more and more supplies, from the housing part. So since we have really limited, housing provider in the market, and we have a huge demand, that's why every year the price just keep increasing. And then it causes a situation like for younger generation like us, we couldn't really afford, to buy an apartment, for ourselves, even like after working for 20 or 30 years. It's quite a pathetic, fact to tell, like, for us, it's really, really difficult to just have our own, apartment in Hong Kong. So next one. Okay, here comes to the movie. And as some of you may know, Hong Kong movie was once quite famous from the previous century because of Bruce Lee triggers, the trend of action movie or maybe, Hong Kong movie in Hollywood. And then later on, so many international movies, they just took place to film partly, of the scene in Hong Kong. As you can see, a skyscraper, but, that tallest building with fire doesn't really exist in Hong Kong. It was created by some computer, technology. And the second one was the scene from Batman 2 Dark Knight. And basically, Batman was jumping over, that building you can see from a skyscraper below. And that building, the tallest one, which we call IFC, International Financial Center in Hong Kong, used to be the tallest building in Hong Kong, but no longer nowadays. And also another one, the Transformer, also was filmed in Hong Kong as well. Next one. So here comes to some why maybe action movie or maybe some movie like, let's say, maybe some action movie why it's so famous in Hollywood or internationally. Is because we have our Hong Kong action director, or maybe we have the team how to create maybe some really unique or maybe special style about action movie or maybe action movements. And actually there are several movies inside from the fight scene or maybe about the kung fu stuff or maybe martial arts was created by the Hong Kong action team. Like Shang-Chi will be the most recent one, and also the most well-known one will be Matrix, which was from, I don't know, so many years ago, but it was a trend like about this movie, and people start talking about Hong Kong action movement design, and also Spider-Man 2. But this one maybe not so many people know actually inside some Spider-Man fight scene or maybe some action movement was created by the Hong Kong action team. Next one. So about movie, let's talk about a little bit about the movie stars. As everyone knows that Bruce Lee, he's the most famous one, and then another one will be Jackie Chan. So I'm not going to talk about those two of them because people already know them. And also I will introduce another one from the right hand side called Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen probably is one of the most famous Hong Kong action movie star nowadays, even in Hollywood. So I will show some movie he was filmed, from Hollywood, like this one, Star Wars Rogue One, and then he was acting, a blind guy, in this movie. Actually, it's quite funny. He was acting, a blind guy, but I didn't really watch this movie. But yeah, if you are interested in Star Wars, you can have a look. Next one. Next one, he was actually acting, quite a big character in Triple X with Vin Diesel. Like he was the opponents of Vin Diesel. Even they have some fight scenes and also I mean since maybe probably since this movie, and then Donnie started to gain some reputation from the Hollywood, and then later on he started to film some other further movies later on. Next one. So when it comes to Donnie Yen, so there's some of his, let's say, symbol, maybe signature movie I would like to introduce, Ip Man. So Ip Man was one of the most famous Wing Chun master. Wing Chun is kind of martial arts, and he was the master, really, really famous. Even nowadays in the US Army, there's one class about martial arts. You have to receive the training of Wing Chun as well. It was influenced by Ip Man. So this one is Ip Man one, and then you can see 10 Japanese bosses. Basically, it was quite a big scene from that movie. Like he was challenging 1 to 10, like fighting with 10 Japanese bosses. under the Japanese invasion period in China, because he's not really from Hong Kong. He's from one city called Foshan, which people call the place for all those kung fu masters. And then also Ip Man 2 and also Ip Man 3. And actually from the whole series will be in total of 4. And also the 4th one was filmed partly in the States, like, how Ip Man influenced, the martial arts of Wing Chun even to the States. And here comes to a small movie clip. You can have a look when Ip Man, inside the movie was fighting, literally, Mike Tyson, one of the greatest boxer or maybe fighter, from the US history.
你要對付我啊嘛，我嚟咗啦，你想點？
I don't know if you are lagging watching this video. If yes, we can send the link in below, and then you can have a look by yourself. If from my side it's a little bit lagging, maybe because of the distance.
Seems to me that your Wing Chun fist is the fastest.
Why? My 5 back paw.
Let's see who fists are the fastest.
All right. Maybe Eva can send the link in the chat, and then they can just watch by themselves. Yeah, here comes to some Easter egg of the whole presentation. Like Ip Man was the master, kung fu master, inspired Bruce Lee, because in Bruce Lee's early age, he was learning Wing Chun from Ip Man. And even you can see this scene from one of the Ip Man movie in the 3rd episode. Yeah, it's literally the episode where, Ip Man was fighting with Mike Tyson, acting in that movie. And Bruce Lee once said, he was really inspired and he's really appreciated of Ip Man, to teach him Wing Chun, which he got so many inspirations to develop his own martial arts. Later on, Jeet Kune Do. So yeah, that's something maybe people they don't really know. So next one. So here comes to the end of my presentation. So I really appreciate all of you with your attentions and Achulabe. So now it comes to the Q&A questions. You can raise any questions about Hong Kong, or maybe anything you want to ask. You can write your question even in the chat, or maybe you can just speak out if you have any questions.
Yes, feel free to ask any questions if you have any. Nico, thank you so much for the presentation. I hope it wasn't the presentation wasn't maybe lagging for the rest of the people, as I think everyone joins in from Lithuania, and it should have been fine. Nico, before other questions arise, you've mentioned a very interesting fact that you grew up in a family that was very closely traditional cuisine related. Your mom was a dim sum chef. How did it feel growing up, being, as you say, yourself an expert of dim sum? And did you find any good places in Vilnius or in other cities in Lithuania to eat dim sum that would be more or less authentic?
Okay, I mean, in the first semester when I was in Vilnius, I was trying so hard, to find some maybe Cantonese restaurant or maybe a Chinese restaurant, which, they will serve some dim sum, stuff over there, but I couldn't really manage to find any. But currently, before I left, I found that there's one Cantonese, I won't say Cantonese, it's more like, a Cantonese fusion restaurant located in Vilnius, Gadomino Street. And also that one, they provide, the option you can try dim sum. It's not the authentic one, it's more like, the fusion one. but I have tried and actually it tastes pretty good. So for any of you, who haven't tried dim sum before, maybe you can manage to go there. But the price is a little bit expensive, but definitely worth it. Not only for dim sum, but also for the roasted duck. The roasted duck, I would like to recommend strongly.
Great, thank you so much. So it's in Gedimino Prospektas, right? The main street in the city center. Gabby wrote a question. Do you have a favorite Hong Kong movie? Maybe you can recommend something.
My favorite Hong Kong movie is actually in Cantonese, and it's called Mo Gan Do in Cantonese, which talking about some gangsters and also about the police, their relationship, and also they're putting spies to each other. And this film is one of the best Hong Kong movie all time. And even from the Hollywood, they bought the copyrights from this movie, and then they refilm another one in the Hollywood version, and then that movie won some trophy from the Oscar as well. So this one you can have a look. Maybe some of you can recognize one of the actor from this movie. It's called Tony Leung, which he currently filmed some Hollywood movie as well. Yeah, I forgot which one. Tony Leung. Shang-Chi, yeah. He was, the bad guy, from Shang-Chi. And then you can have a look. Because basically in this movie, they decided to use, two main actors, like two main actors in the movie, but not, single main actors. So the aspects of this movie is actually quite good. But I don't know if you can manage to watch with some maybe English subtitles, because it's not quite a new movie. It was back in time like 2010 and something, so it will be a bit difficult to find with English subtitles. But if you can read simplified Chinese, and then you can manage to find some version with the subtitle in simplified Chinese as well.
Great. I saw that you wrote the name in Chinese, so people can copy paste the name of the movie and try and find it. Another question: what are the main differences you found between Lithuania and Hong Kong while living here? I guess we would need a separate hour to name all the differences, because I guess there are so many. But maybe you can name the main ones that kind of struck you most.
Okay, the most struggling parts will be food and also weather, because in Hong Kong it's very humid, and also normally the temperature is quite high, because right now like outside is around 30 degrees Celsius. So in summertime, we also like Vilnius or maybe Lithuania, we rain a lot, but somehow we have typhoon in summertime as well, which is not so common to see in Lithuania. And also about the food culture, in Lithuania, I found maybe, I'm a little bit sorry to say that, but like the option is not that diverse, of food options in Vilnius. Because mainly like, let's talk about, in Vilnius, normally I will go to Indian restaurant, Georgian restaurant, Lithuanian restaurant, Italian restaurant, but it's pretty much like all those cuisines, they are tasting good. But like the Chinese one, the Japanese one, and maybe Korean one, like Asian style is not that really many options. And even, if they taste somehow, not so good at all. I mean, just my personal idea. Yeah, Wujiandao is also called Infernal Affair in English, but somehow like, I don't know if Internal Affair refers to the Hollywood one or literally refers to the Hong Kong one. So this one you can have a look, maybe both, but I would like to recommend, the Hong Kong one will be the more original.
Great, thank you so much. So now that you've mentioned the weather, what is the weather now in Hong Kong? Is it typhoon season at the moment, or is it very hot and very humid and no rain, like a dry season?
Yeah, and I guess we are going to rain really soon, because normally the very hot weather will stay for several times, and then later on it will be a really heavy rain. So it seems quite common in Hong Kong. And I guess typhoon season is also coming, because normally typhoon season will be around June to September, or even sometimes October. So outside actually today is a little bit cloudy, and also it was thundering before. So I don't know if the thundering will remain later on.
Right. Well, if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Another one thing that I also wanted to kind of point out, maybe not everybody knows, you've already mentioned a few things that you have different compared to mainland China, right? You mentioned that you're a special administrative zone, and that you have a passport that is not exactly the same as for mainland Chinese. But there are a few more very distinct differences that you have. For example, your currency, right? And maybe you can name a few more of these differences that you deal with daily, that show that you are not just another part of mainland China.
Okay, some other differences, of course, the currency. And then we are using Hong Kong dollars instead of RMB, renminbi in China. And we have our own, let's say, our law base is more like, we are using the basic law, to very similar, to the Western countries, but not like, the law in China. So we have different, law system. And even like, because also, from the British period, we basically adapted, all those things from the British period, and then just lasting, nowadays. But some of the things will be quite, a mixture, like, about the holidays. We mix the traditional Chinese celebration holidays to the Western one. So basically we'll have, Christmas. And one of my favorite holiday during the student period, we'll have around 2 weeks holiday to connect with the New Year. I mean, not the Chinese New Year, but the Western New Year. But also we have the holiday for Lunar New Year as well. So we just took all the benefits, from both sides, from the holidays. Yeah. We also celebrate Easter. So so it's quite a mixture of Western and also the Chinese culture. That's the, the special part, of Hong Kong.
And if I remember correctly, you still drive on the left side of the road as it is in the UK, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's true. We are having, the same rules of driving like UK. Mm-hmm. And even previously from the education system, we also copy from the UK system. Let's say copy, or maybe just, just from the UK, they make the education system. We previously having 7 years in the second grade, and also 3 years in university. So, but back in time, like, our system changed a little bit, trying to fit in, most of the education system in the world. So we are having 3 years junior high, 3 years senior high, and also 4 years in the universities nowadays.
Great. Well, I see that no other questions occur, so maybe we can stop right here. Nikko, thank you very much for joining us today. The connection seemed to work, not totally fine, but it still worked fine. We all heard you, I hope. We will share this presentation later this week in our social media. Follow us, Kinų kalbos ir kultūros namai, Center for Chinese Language and Culture, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and we will also share this video on YouTube. We're planning to do more of these talks with people who live or have lived in East Asian and Southeast Asian countries, so we'll keep you posted. Thank you very much, Nikko, for joining us today. Good luck for the rest of your isolation period. I hope it finishes soon and you're COVID-free and you can finally reconnect with your family and friends.
Okay, thank you so much, for the chance I can present about my city, my hometown, and thank you, for all the participants. And I hope my information could help you, get to know Hong Kong more. And of course, we are really welcome you to visit Hong Kong since we don't have that many Lithuanians being around here. And I love Vilnius and I love Lithuania. It was quite a tough decision for me to move back, to Hong Kong. So I love this country, and I hope maybe some of you could come and also visit Hong Kong and also try Cantonese food, feel the culture, maybe find some statue of Bruce Lee or maybe some other movie star in Hong Kong. And if you have any question or about Hong Kong, about Cantonese culture, you are free to contact me, to write me. I don't know if you can find they can find my contact from Facebook, right? Facebook events.
Yes,
so,
you were the co-host. Yeah, you were the co-host of the event, so you can find Nikko on Facebook easily.
Yeah, just feel free to contact me if you have any questions, or maybe if you want to visit here, maybe some recommendations. So you are really welcome, and I will appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Nikko. Everyone is saying thank you, and please remind yourself that you're always welcome to come back here in Lithuania, and hopefully next time you come, we'll have more variety of good Cantonese, Japanese, Korean foods next time you're around here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and also Taiwanese. As
Taiwanese food, yeah, that's true.
Taiwanese. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Taiwanese stuff since I literally took my bachelor degree in Taiwan. So I also have quite a heavy connection with Taiwan as well. I can manage to find some really nice Taiwanese bubble tea. I mean, it tastes really authentic in Vilnius. But so far, I haven't found any, Taiwanese food, restaurants and stuff, in Vilnius. So hopefully later on, maybe, some Taiwanese people or maybe, the Taiwanese government will develop something more, which you can try, the actual Taiwanese food one day, in Vilnius or even somewhere in Lithuania.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Bubble tea is a good start, and then hopefully we move on to more foods, variety of foods. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us today, and have a great weekend. And Nikko, best of luck to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you all of you, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.